Spoke exclusively to our own Carlos Vergara, who joins us live from Miami. Carlos?
Yeah, the store manager here at New Way Supermarket doesn't want his face shown in our following piece, but he says he has no choice, or had no choice yesterday in fighting back. Only problem is that the fighting back spilled out into the streets.
Porque esta criaturita de Dios me dijo.
Leila Aburto says that by the very mercy of God, she and her son are safe. Her son, in a rare request, asked to go inside to study moments before shots rang out in her yard.
With a gun in my face, anybody could be scared.
It began at the New Way Supermarket at Northwest 34th and 22nd Streets when Matthew Felder allegedly tried to rob the store.
He looked at me straight, pointing the gun on me. But I was lucky I had my gun too.
That's when the manager shoots off 3 rounds from his own weapon. One shot goes into a box sitting on the shelf. The second one goes through that plastic divider you'll see here. But this is the crucial shot. Take a look at this. This is the one that went through the lower part of the plastic divider. That's where Matthew Felder was hit in the chest when he turns around as he stumbles out the door. Amazingly, the suspect, having taken around a hollow point bullet from a Glock 27 40 caliber handgun, manages to run a city block. Passam and another employee say they chased Felder through yards and over fences, all the while exchanging gunfire. 20-year-old Matthew Felder, already a convicted felon for another armed robbery, is expected to recover, but he now faces charges of armed robbery and 2 counts of attempted felony murder, among other things. Felder's former guardian up until 2 months ago says Felder fell into the same routine, even under probation for an armed robbery in 2002.
All the things that we tried to invest in him and put in him and instilled in him, it just went out the window.
Back at the New Way Supermarket, Passem makes one thing extremely clear.
Don't come rob me because I'm not going to let it go. If I get a chance, I'm defending myself. That's how it goes.
Felder now faces life in prison if convicted of those charges. Meantime, police say that the store manager's actions may have been justified. We're live in Miami. Carlos Vergara, NBC6.
Carlos Vergara is live in Doral with the very latest. Carlos?
Yeah, the 5-day ordeal ended north of Elliott Key. The 19 refugees are battered but doing well, but not as well as one man we spoke to today. He recognized his mother, one of the refugees, from video that we shot earlier in the day. Now, regardless of how you stand on this issue politically, this is one of those stories that will pull at your heartstrings. Ángel, ¿cómo te sientes? Ángel Caballero says in his native Spanish that he feels fine, but along with 3 other Cubans will be checked out at a Homestead hospital before being processed and released. He's one of 19 Cuban nationals who made the harrowing trip by sea before arriving on American soil.
¿Sí? ¿Llegaron en bote?
Sí.
¿De cuántos años tienes?
17.
The 19, including one 4- or 5-year-old child and 3 other minors, were discovered walking the beach north of Elliott Key.
¿Están aquí en Miami?
And no hay éxito.
This man says he has family waiting for him in New Jersey.
Un bote rústico de allá de Caibarín.
¿Cuánto tiempo?
But 50-year-old Demelia Lloren won't have to go so far. Pavel Bacallao hasn't seen his mother in 5.5 years, until today.
Cheers, yeah. Cheers, my mom.
We confirmed his mother was among the refugees when we showed him video that we shot at the scene. Pavel and his wife are ecstatic. They say they'll have a celebration so that his 2 kids can finally spend time with their grandmother. Others may not be so lucky, but they were greeted with waves by bystanders.
Man was born to be free. Man wasn't born to be oppressed or dictated to. You know what I mean? I like to get up in the morning and eat what I want to eat, go where I want to go.
Now, the majority of the group is at Border Patrol headquarters in Pembroke Pines. They'll then visit a clinic, and then they'll be transferred here to the Migration and Refugee Services in Doral, where then they'll be released because they did touch American soil. We are live in Doral. Carlos Vergara, NBC6.
You're disgusting. I can't stand you. How could you do that to my dog?
It all happened on an idle Friday afternoon. Maribel Sanchez came walking into the kitchen where the family keeps a closed-circuit monitor to watch the cameras on the property. That's when she screamed out for her mother because the neighbor who had been hired to lay brick was up to no good, say police.
Look what's happened. I go, I can't believe it. I go, what's he doing?
He was having sex with me. He was raping my dog.
As Maribel ran out the back door to the aid of Diego, the pet dog, she screamed. Mom stayed in the kitchen watching.
He just pushed the dog away from him, and he just kind of went with his pants.
Diego!
Maribel screaming for Diego was enough for the suspect to zip up and give other excuses. Unfortunately, everything was caught on this surveillance camera. The bad part is, the videotape, it wasn't rolling. Now it's their word against his. So we went in search of answers from the accused. Mr. Mora. 58-year-old Jose Mora. He wouldn't answer his gate, and his sister-in-law and brother told us off camera that he was at work. And neighbors?
He's a very nice guy and very good person.
Meantime, Mora is out on bond and facing 2 counts of sexual gratification, mistreating animals, and a couple of charges of dog napping as well as disorderly conduct. But Diego's owners say Mora should pay the maximum 9 months in jail and $10,000 fine. Still, Diego, a family member to the Sanchezes, think Diego will never be the same.
There's a bond that's unexplainable. He's a part of our family. He's not a dog. His name is Diego.
Now, there is a smoking gun in this, if you will. After a rape kit was performed on the dog, police came back and asked Diego's owners if they had olive oil in their garage. And sure enough, the Sanchezes keep it there for barbecues. In this case, it was used for the alleged crime.
Carlos.
Hey there, Michelle and Paul. Trevante Schmidt had his preliminary hearing today. He's the guy accused of putting a mask over his face, putting a handgun in his pocket, and walking into LNA Market. Now, when he does so, he pulls the handgun on the clerk and puts it to his face. Now, that was his first big mistake because the clerk is a former Marine, not this woman. His second mistake was this surveillance video, which caught it all on tape. His third mistake was that the clerk's dad was watching from behind. He came over, grabbed the bad guy from the arm. They struggled. They fell down here. Now, look at this. The gun went off, a bullet hole going right into the ice cream machine. Luckily, the gun jammed. They all fell to the ground. Now, that's when customers jumped into the fray, picking up pickle jars and bashing them over the head. Here's where the case stands now. Let's roll the videotape. Today, Trevante Schmidt walked into court for a preliminary hearing. Witnesses talked about how
He had a gun.
and how he reportedly tried to rob the place. Only problem is the store owners and customers stood up for themselves. Detective Walter Capelli was asked about how the suspect, despite being armed, got himself into a pickle.
Were they armed with some other objects?
Yes.
What kind of objects?
Condiments, pickle jars.
The do-gooders used a pickle jar and other store items to break the suspect. In fact, at one point, he's kicked in what appears to be the face by an unknown man, even after one officer has him handcuffed. Still today, at times, testimony appearing to be humorous to the detective.
Do most robberies end with a suspect remaining at the scene of the robbery?
No.
Not very humorous for the commissioner when the prosecution had to dismiss a witness. Due to a language barrier they weren't prepared for.
I can see there's a tremendous amount of witness preparation that's been accomplished in this, Mr. President.
But according to the detective, Schmidt has confessed to the robbery and points out the man who was subdued with pickle jars and condiments.
He's seated at the defense counsel table wearing orange.
And this video may not help, the suspect quickly becoming known as being behind the pickle jar robbery. All right, back live here at LNA. You're looking at a live picture of that gun hole. Luckily, no one injured in that. Preliminary hearing continued until next Friday. Meantime, Schmidt jailed on 2 charges of armed robbery until the judge decides at the conclusion of that preliminary hearing whether he will grant him bond. We're live in Milwaukee. Carlos Vergara, CBS 58 News.
Slowly but surely, things seem to be getting back to normal after this week's record storm.
CBS 58's Carlos Vergara joins us now live with more. Carlos?
Hey, Michelle and Paul, check it out. Even outside our own studios, people trying to get rid of the snow, but it is becoming an even more difficult process day by day. It appears everybody has a dog in this fight. Despite some slips and falls, Joan Mack happy to deliver the day's mail.
Lots of people don't have jobs. Cold or not, snow, I'm happy to be working it.
Gerald and Steve have a job too. They've been hired to clear the snow from the sidewalk along this east side business so that deliveries can come in and money can be made. But the ever popular meter maid of the snow world also has a job.
You could do this all day long.
Greg Nardelli uses a massive plow to move the snow to clear the streets, but...
and it's pretty difficult when everybody parks on the street.
So Greg goes up and down these streets, clearing the snow, burying cars in. Folks come out, dig themselves out, leave, come back, only to find that Greg has come by and buried them in again. Sometimes in about 3.5 feet of snow, as you can see here. And who's to pay for it? Well, this resident, Manolo, on the south side of Milwaukee.
Pero a veces no te hacen caso.
In his native Spanish, Manolo Ruiz pleads with Greg to stop burying him and his neighbors in because they have nowhere else to park. But Greg, who feels horrible, says
It's unfortunate because they make a spot for themselves and you got to go somewhere with it.
a quandary for everyone involved, but for Gerald and Steve, when their sidewalk undoubtedly gets covered again by Greg's snowplow, job security.
I'll just get paid to come back and do it.
And the quandary's made even worse by the fact that those lots that MPS had made available, well, they're no longer available in the city. Well, they're writing tickets and towing cars like it's going out of style. We're live in West Dallas. Carlos Vergara, CBS 58 News. More than 2,400 miles from the state capitol in Arizona, we're on the steps of City Hall in New York City, where recent legislation against illegal immigration in that state has taken on a life of its own here in the state of New York. New York City, the latest in a number of city governments coming out against Arizona's State Bill 1070.
Know what Governor Brewer and the legislature of Arizona were thinking.
The city council and other immigrants' rights groups considering an economic boycott of Arizona.
Basta! Basta!
That sits well with Angel.
Soy mexicano, soy ilegal.
In his native Spanish, Angel admits to being illegally in the United States for the past 6 years. But now he has 2 American-born daughters. Today he sits quietly in the background letting those that are in the United States legally fight his battle with signs and chants of protest. Few people question the fact that something needs to be done about illegal immigration. What many people are having a problem with now is the fact that the governor of Arizona has signed legislation that requires police to mandatorily question those they suspect are in the country illegally.
Yes, it's racism.
Dr. Catherine Lee is an expert in race relations and how it's impacted by the long-standing illegal immigration issue in the United States. She expects the Arizona law, which would require police officers to question anyone they suspect of being illegal, to open up the floodgates.
When Governor Brewer signed the law, she very clearly identified what she considered safety measures, that there would be no ethnic or racial profiling. Racial profiling may not be allowable under this law, but in practice, it could very well be the only way that many officers, even if they don't want to be explicitly racially profiling, may rely on those characteristics or features.
Nonsense, says Dr. Gail Kesselman. She heads up New Jersey Citizens for Immigration Reform, a grassroots group asking lawmakers to seal the borders and, according to its website, stop the invasion.
There's too large a number of illegal immigrants. We don't have work for them right now. They really need to return to their home country. We need to secure the border. What's going on in the state of Arizona is a disgrace.
What would be considered suspicious, according to Gail Kesselman?
Speaks a foreign language, does not have ID. I think there's some suspicion. I think a reasonable person might be suspicious that maybe that person is not an American citizen or legal resident.
But according to Dr. Lee, carrying identification is not mandatory in the United States as a citizen. And according to a recent Gallup poll, 1 in 4 Americans speak a second language, making them, in the eyes of Dr. Kesselman, suspicious. And that's exactly what some lawmakers are so up in arms about.
It is a ridiculous, look, the idea of being able to walk down the street of Arizona or walk down the street of New York and pick out who is an illegal immigrant, it's an un-American thing to try to do, but it is impossible.
A growing number of lawsuits are being filed in opposition to the law, and opponents have already filed legal action to block it. And yet another group has filed papers for a referendum drive that potentially could delay the passage of the bill. But they need to find 76,000 signatures. If that happens, that would delay the law, expected to go into effect in late July or early August, until a vote could be held. Possibly not until 2012. In New York, Carlos Vergara, Ebru News.